Oh, we've got a top 10 showdown in the Big Ten on Saturday afternoon as in-state rivals collide in a battle of unbeatens. Michigan State hosting Michigan in East Lansing. First top 10 matchup between the two schools since 1964. Wolverines lead the Big Ten in rushing, while Spartans running back Kenneth Walker III leads the nation in rushing yards per game. Get right to the site. It's a big game, which means big game Dennis Dodd is there. He joins us from East Lansing. Dennis, set the scene for us there ahead of kickoff, a top 10 showdown between Michigan and Michigan State.
Yeah, Hakeem, this is one of my favorite, I guess maybe under-the-radar rivalries. It's hard to say Michigan State is under the radar, but when everybody's caught up with the Iron Bowl and Ohio State, Michigan, this is really a good one. I've covered a few of these games, and the hate here, Hakeem, is what gets me. I think it was Mark D'Antonio the year after the little brother comment by Mike Hart. They won here in East Lansing. I remember Mark D'Antonio saying something like, "It's not over. It'll never be over. We're just getting started." And that sent chills up and down my spine. I felt like playing that day. Not that I'm a Michigan State fan, but that was football that day. And that's what this is going to be on Saturday afternoon. You're going to see two kind of ground-based offenses. You mentioned Kenneth Walker III. Michigan State's a little bit more balanced, diverse offense. Even though Kenneth Walker is leading the country in rushing, you're going to see what Michigan has done for the last 6 years, for the last 7 years. They run the ball, play defense, and punt. The difference now with Jim Harbaugh is that they've got better players doing it. They're not very fun to watch. They're kind of boring. But look, boring is good at Michigan right now as long as they win. Two 7-0 teams. The winner on track for the division championship and maybe a CFP berth.
Michigan 2-12 versus top 10 opponents under Jim Harbaugh, proving he struggles to win the big games. Dennis, what would a win mean for the Wolverines head coach?
Be the biggest win of his career at Michigan. I don't think there's any question. You just mentioned the record against top 10 teams. He was given that kind of mini extension in the offseason where it gave Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel a little bit of wiggle room in case he wanted to make a change. It was a lot incentive-based. But they give Jim Harbaugh credit. He's come through this year. This is what he was supposed to do from day one. Winning 10 and going 10-3 a couple of times wasn't good enough. He was supposed to compete for championships. But here he is a couple of days before November right there. So this would be the biggest win of his career. He's got a quarterback. This is not Shea Patterson, who didn't have enough weapons to go around. And look, it won't be proven until November 27th when they play Ohio State, a team he hasn't beaten yet. And Ohio State's probably the class of the league right now. But this is the best game in the Big Ten right now. And two teams that didn't expect to be in the top 10 with all I mentioned, CFP berth, division championship, and maybe a spot in the Big Ten championship game.
Michigan 7-0 for the second time under Jim Harbaugh, while Michigan State is 7-0 for the first time since 2015. It is Mel Tucker's second season with the program and a stark turnaround from this year to last. He went 2-5 last season, now 7-0 this season. He's embraced the transfer portal, Dennis. Is that one of the reasons why Michigan State has been successful so far this season?
Yeah, that is the reason, Hakeem. Hook, line, and sinker. He knew he had to change the lineup. He had to flip the lineup. I said it's the biggest flip you'll see since HGTV, redoing houses right here at Michigan State. And while other coaches were decrying the transfer portal and the one-time transfer, saying, is there no loyalty in college football? He just set about saying this is the reality of college football going forward. 20 transfers from 15 different schools. I'll give you an example. Kenneth Walker, again, the third, coming in from Wake Forest. Didn't particularly like the slow mesh that Dave Clawson had. There's nothing wrong with it. Wake Forest is undefeated and using the slow mesh. Looks like a slow RPO. It's worked great for them, but not for him in that offense. I think he ran for something like 538 yards, 2 straight years, the same number. And Michigan State called him up and said, hey, we need a guy like you. And he kind of said, hey, I'll come in and compete. Yeah, no, you don't understand. We rushed for 2.5 yards per carry last year. We were second last in the Big Ten. You come here, you're going to be given every consideration to be the guy. And that's exactly what has happened. Kenneth Walker, this stat that's kind of been created by Pro Football Focus, missed tackles forced. This kid had 20 missed tackles forced against Miami. He's a guy that not only brings a load as a runner, but when he puts his foot in the ground, he makes tackles miss. and they are in love with that statistic. I'm in love with that statistic. You're going to see it tomorrow where people think they have him lined up. Not like a Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders was smaller and more skittish. This kid brings weight, height, and a load to great feet. So that's what you're going to see tomorrow. Another one of those transfers, Ronald Williams from Alabama, went to Hutch Junior College in Kansas his first year. Nick Saban liked him, brought him in 2020, broke his arm in drills, and so kind of fell down the depth chart. He comes here and becomes a real contributor at cornerback. There's a lot of those stories up and down this lineup, Hakeem.
Michigan State is a 4-point home underdog in this game. We've got, as you mentioned, college football playoff implications on this game. How do you see this monster matchup playing out on Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, I like Michigan State straight up. At home, in the weather, I think the total is something around 50. I like it under the total. In a close game, I like Michigan State with a more diverse offense, as I mentioned, with Peyton Thorne. They go downfield a little bit. I think they're going to try to test these Michigan corners. And for Michigan to win, frankly, Cade McNamara is going to have to make some plays downfield with both his feet and his arm. I don't know if he can do this against this defense, playing in a pit that is Spartan Stadium in a rivalry game where, as bad as that season was last year, Hakeem, for Michigan State, they did beat Michigan, so they know how to do it. There's a good stat here. Mel Tucker, 3-0 against Michigan. He won twice as a GA here under a guy named Nick Saban in 97 and 98, and he told me a good anecdote. I said, what was that like back then? He remembered in 1997, the first time they walked across the street to play in this game against Michigan. He said, the walk usually takes 7 minutes from the facility. It took 3 minutes with Nick Saban. He couldn't wait to get to this game.
Big game, Dennis Dodd joining us ahead of the big game there in East Lansing on Saturday afternoon, Michigan and Michigan State. Dennis, thank you very much. And how about this? Take a look at this. Michigan State has not been good in its last 7 games against top 10 opponents. In fact, they're winless straight up and against the spread. The Spartans have lost each game by 14 or more points. Michigan and Michigan State kicking off noon Eastern on Saturday.